The rain had been falling for 3 straight days in London. The streets were slick with water, reflecting the blurred glow of streetlights like melted gold. The city, always alive with sound, seemed softer now, muted by the drizzle and the sighs of passing strangers. Inside a small brick building, tucked between 2 tall apartments, lived Lena Brooks, a 25-year-old painter with eyes as tired as the rain outside. Her window overlooked the narrow alley where vines crawled up the walls like faded veins. Lena's hands trembled slightly as she mixed paint, green, blue, white, trying to catch the color of hope on canvas. But every stroke reminded her of something she didn't want to think about. She was dying. The doctors had told her 6 months ago, a rare lung disease, quiet and merciless. The medicine helped, but not for long. The cold London air made breathing worse. Yet every morning, Lena still sat before her easel, painting the life she felt slipping away. The door creaked open, and Maya Collins, her best friend and flatmate, entered with 2 cups of cheap instant coffee. Maya was the opposite of Lena, full of energy, fire, and impossible dreams. Still painting? Maya smiled softly. You should rest. The doctor said. I know what the doctor said, Lena interrupted with a faint grin. But he doesn't understand art. If I stop painting, I stop breathing. Maya handed her the cup and sat down beside her. Then keep painting, she said gently. Just let me worry for you. Lena chuckled weakly. You always worry too much. Maya looked around their small studio apartment, peeling wallpaper, brushes in old mugs, canvases leaning against the wall. They were both artists, but lately Maya's art had turned into survival, designing posters for small cafes, sketching portraits for tourists in Covent Garden. Still, every night, she came home to Lena, her best friend. Her sister in spirit, the one who had once believed in her dreams more than she did. From the ceiling came the familiar sound, footsteps slow and heavy, followed by the scraping of a chair. That's him again, Maya muttered. Old man Bennett, I swear he never sleeps. Lena smiled. He paints at night. I can smell the turpentine. Mr. Bennett, their upstairs neighbor, was a retired painter. He rarely spoke to anyone, except to complain about the rent or the noise. His wife had died years ago, and since then, his only company was his brushes and silence. But sometimes, when Lena struggled to breathe, she'd hear soft classical music playing above her. Somehow, it comforted her. Maybe he paints because he can't sleep, she said quietly. Like me. Outside their window was a brick wall covered with ivy. In summer, it looked alive, a tapestry of green leaves dancing with sunlight. But now, in winter, the vines were almost bare. Lena often stared at that wall. One day, when she was too weak to leave bed, she whispered, Maya, when the last leaf falls from that wall, I'll know it's time. Maya froze. Don't say that, please. But Lena's pale lips curved into a small smile. It's just a thought. Artists think strange things. From that day on, the ivy wall became their calendar of hope. Every morning, Maya would count the leaves. Each time one fell, her heart broke a little more. Winter grew harsher. The nights colder. One evening, the rain turned to a storm. The wind howled through the alley like a wounded animal. Maya shut the windows tight, afraid the cold would worsen Lena's illness. Lena lay in bed, coughing softly. Maya, she whispered, the leaves, how many are left? Maya didn't want to look, but she did. Only one leaf clung stubbornly to the vine, trembling in the storm. It's still there, Maya lied. Though she wasn't sure it would last till morning, Lena's hand searched for hers. "If it falls tonight," she said faintly, "promise me something." "Don't talk like that." "Promise me," Lena insisted, her eyes glassy but fierce. "Promise me you'll keep painting. You'll live your life. You'll finish my last work." Maya swallowed her tears. "I promise." That night, while the wind raged, footsteps echoed on the stairs. It was Mr. Bennett, the old man upstairs. He had overheard the conversation through the thin ceiling. He looked out his own window and saw the same wall, the same lonely leaf fighting against the storm. His heart ached. He had lost someone too once, his wife, who had died of illness on a rainy night like this. He put on his coat, picked up his paintbrushes and colors, and stepped out into the storm. Rain soaked his clothes as he leaned against the wall outside the girl's apartment. He set up a small lantern, his trembling hands working in the cold. And then, stroke by stroke, he painted a leaf, a perfect, vivid, green leaf on the brick wall. By morning, it looked real. No one could tell it wasn't alive. When dawn broke, the storm had passed. Maya woke up, her eyes swollen from crying. She hesitated before looking at the window, and then her breath caught. The leaf was still there, bright, unmoved, unbroken. "Maya," Lena whispered weakly, "it's still there, isn't it?" Maya smiled through her tears. Yes, it didn't fall. Lena looked at it for a long time, something shining in her eyes. "If that leaf can hold on," she said softly, "so can I." That morning, for the first time in weeks, Lena asked for food. She even laughed when Maya teased her about her messy hair. A spark had returned to her soul, tiny but real. Maya called it a miracle. But upstairs, in his dark, cold apartment, Mr. Bennett lay motionless on his chair. He had caught pneumonia that night while painting in the rain. The brush was still in his hand, but color still wet on the palette. A week later, the doctor came again. To everyone's surprise, Lena's condition had improved. The medicine had started working. Her will to live had returned. She painted again, slowly, painfully, but with new hope. And when she finished her last painting, she signed it with shaky hands, "For the one who painted my last leaf." Maya found the courage to visit Mr. Bennett's apartment a few days later. It was silent, empty except for his unfinished paintings. On the wall, she saw a small note in his handwriting. Sometimes hope must be painted by someone else. She stood there for a long time, tears falling silently. Then she went downstairs, looked at the wall, and whispered, "Thank you." The morning sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, painting faint golden stripes on the cracked wall. It was the first time in months that Lena Brooks had opened her eyes and smiled at dawn. The rain had finally stopped. The world outside was quiet, washed clean. The single leaf still clung to the wall, green, alive, and glowing under the early light. For Lena, it was more than a leaf. It was a promise that life could still hold on, even when everything else had let go. Maya brought a tray to the bed, porridge, orange juice, and a small vase with one white daisy. "You're eating breakfast like a normal person again," she teased gently. Lena laughed, the sound small but genuine. "Normal people don't treat porridge like a royal feast." Maya sat beside her. "It's been 2 weeks since the storm. You're walking, painting, even scolding me for not cleaning the brushes. I'd say that's progress." Lena touched the window pane with trembling fingers. "Do you think that leaf will stay?" "Maybe it's stronger than us both," Maya replied. They didn't know that it wasn't a lease at all. It was paint, born of sacrifice. But that secret still rested quietly in the room upstairs where no one dared to go. 3 days later, the landlord came by with some letters that had been misplaced. Among them was a plain brown envelope with Lena's name written in neat, old-fashioned handwriting. "It was found in Mr. Bennett's room," the landlord explained, "before he, you know." Lena's eyes widened. "He left something for me?" Maya carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a folded note and a small, worn paintbrush wrapped in cloth. Lena read aloud, her voice trembling. "Dear Miss Brooks, I've watched you paint the light even while living in the dark. Artists like us, we live twice, once in the world and once in our hearts. If ever you forget to live, look outside your window. Sometimes hope needs to be painted by someone else. Bennett." Lena held the brush tightly. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew I was giving up." Maya wiped her tears. "He didn't just paint a leaf, Lena. He painted your life back." A month later, Lena's health had improved enough that she could go outside again. The cold still stung her lungs, but she refused to hide from the world anymore. Maya took her to the Camden Art Gallery, where local artists displayed their work. The owner, Mr. Harrington, recognized Lena's name from earlier submissions. "I remember your art," he said kindly. "We're hosting an exhibition next month for emerging artists. You should enter." Lena hesitated. "I'm not sure I'm ready." Maya nudged her. "You promised you'd finish your last work, remember? Maybe it's time the world saw it." Lena looked at her hands, the same hands that had once been too weak to hold a brush. "All right," she said softly. "One last painting." That night, she began her masterpiece. The canvas was huge, nearly the size of the wall that had saved her. On it, she painted an ivy-covered wall under a gray sky, but at its center, one bright green leaf, unmoving, defiant. She titled it "The Last Pro." 2 days before the exhibition, as Lena worked late into the night, there was a knock on the door. Maya opened it to find a man in his 60s holding an umbrella. "I'm Daniel Bennett," he introduced himself. "My father used to live upstairs." Lena gasped. "You're Mr. Bennett's son?" He nodded. "I came to collect his things. The landlord mentioned you two. He spoke of you in his diary, said there was a girl downstairs who painted the rain better than God himself." Lena laughed softly, tears in her eyes. "He saved my life." Daniel smiled sadly. "Then I'm glad his last painting mattered." He gave her a small wooden box. Inside were Mr. Bennett's old sketches, lonely rooftops, falling leaves, a young couple holding hands beneath the rain. On one page, there was a drawing of Lena's window, and beside it, a note. "She reminds me of the life my wife never got to finish." Lena traced the pencil lines with her fingers. "He painted hope for both of us." 2 days before, the night of the exhibition arrived. The gallery buzzed with voices, the air rich with perfume and excitement. Paintings lined the walls, colors, chaos, beauty. In the center hung Lena's painting, The Last Promise. It drew people like a magnet. Critics whispered. A little girl stood before it for a long time, pointing at the leaf. "Why doesn't it fall, Mama?" she asked. Her mother smiled. "Maybe it's waiting for something beautiful." When the judges announced the winner, Lena's name echoed through the hall. She froze, tears spilling down as Maya hugged her tightly. "You did it," Maya whispered. Lena walked to the stage, clutching the award. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "This painting isn't about art. It's about hope, about a man who taught me that sometimes we survive because someone else believes we can." Applause filled the hall. But above all the noise, She swore she could hear a faint voice, the voice of Mr. Bennet, whispering, "Keep painting, child." When they returned home that night, the alley looked different. The wall that had once been gray and broken was now glowing under the soft streetlight. Maya noticed something. "Lena, look!" There wasn't just one painted leaf anymore. There were hundreds of them, bright, fresh strokes of green spreading across the entire wall. Lena smiled, recognizing the style. It was her own. She had unconsciously painted them in her dreams, her memories, her spirit. "Maybe hope multiplies," she whispered. "Maybe once you share it, it never ends." Months passed. Lena's health stabilized, though she still had to be careful. Maya continued her freelance work, and together they started a small studio called the Leaf House. Every painting they sold carried a small mark in the corner, a tiny green leaf. It became their symbol of endurance, friendship, and second chances. On the anniversary of Mr. Bennet's death, they placed a single candle by the wall. The ivy had grown again, real leaves now covering the painted ones. Lena whispered, "You gave me my last promise, and I kept it." The wind rustled through the vines, almost like a sigh or a thank you. The winter snow melted slowly that year in London. The air smelled of wet streets and the soft promise of spring. In the small art studio called the Leaf House, two women worked side by side, their laughter blending with the quiet hum of life outside. For Lena Brooks, every day was a borrowed miracle. For Maya Collins, it was a mission to keep that miracle alive. It started with a single post. Maya uploaded a picture of Lena's award-winning painting, The Last Promise, on social media with a short caption, "This leaf never fell, because hope never does." By morning, it had gone viral. Thousands of people shared it, commenting how the image made them cry, how it reminded them of someone they had lost or a dream they had almost given up on. The local newspaper picked up the story. Then, the BBC called for an interview. When the host asked Lena, "What inspired you to paint this?" she smiled and said softly, "A man who painted in the dark so that someone else could see the light." The world fell in love with her honesty. Soon, the Leaf House was flooded with messages from hospital patients, soldiers, widows, and struggling artists, all saying the same thing: "Your leaf gave me hope." One morning, Maya found a letter in their mailbox, embossed with gold. It was from the Royal Art Foundation. "We're honored to invite Miss Lena Brooks to showcase her collection at our annual Global Hope exhibition in New York City." Lena froze as she read it. "New York? That's the biggest art event in the world." Maya grinned. "Exactly, you deserve it." But behind that smile, Maya's eyes held worry. Lena's health had started to falter again. The long working hours and travel might be too much. "Are you sure you can handle it?" she asked softly. Lena touched the brush lying on the table, the one Mr. Bennet had left for her. "He painted in the storm for me. I can face a few clouds for him." Their flight to New York was Lena's first in years. She watched the clouds drift by from the airplane window, sketching them on her notepad. "You know," she said to Maya, "I used to think heaven looked like this, all white and endless." Maya smiled. "Maybe it's closer than we think." When they arrived, the city lights dazzled her. The noise, the smell of roasted nuts, the sound of cars, everything felt alive. For the first time, Lena didn't feel like a patient. She felt like an artist again. The exhibition hall was enormous. White walls, tall ceilings, and spotlights that made every color seem to glow. Lena's collection hung in the central section. Her new paintings, The Rain That Stayed, Hands of Light, The Window That Waited, surrounded the main piece, The Last Promise. People from all over the world walked by, some smiling, others quietly wiping their tears. A famous critic, Evelyn Clark, approached Lena. "Your art feels alive," she said. "It doesn't just show hope, it breathes it." Lena blushed. "Hope is all I have to give." That night, when the crowd left, Lena stayed behind. She sat in front of her painting, the green leaf glowing under the soft light, and whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Your brush is still painting through me." Back in London, while sorting through some old boxes, Maya found something tucked inside a sketchbook, a sealed envelope marked, "For Lena, when she believes again." It was in Mr. Bennett's handwriting. Heart pounding, she called Lena in New York and read it aloud on video call. "My dear child, when the world sees your art, I hope you remember, it wasn't the leaf that saved you. It was your will to believe again. I only gave you a reflection of your own strength. Pass it on. Somewhere, another soul will need your painted leaf." Lena wiped her tears. He always knew what to say. Maya smiled sadly. "And you always knew how to make it real." During the final day of the exhibition, a small girl approached Lena shyly. She was holding a folded paper. "This is for you," she said. Lena unfolded it. It was a crayon drawing of a big tree with hundreds of green leaves, and at the top, one leaf shining bright yellow. "What's this one?" Lena asked. "That's my daddy," the girl whispered. "He died last year, but Mommy says he's still watching, like your leaf." Lena's heart broke and healed at the same time. She knelt down, hugged the girl, and said, "Keep your leaf safe, sweetheart. It'll never fall." A week after returning home, Lena's condition worsened. The doctors said her lungs were too weak. The travel and stress had taken a toll. One evening, Maya walked into the studio and found Lena sitting by the window again, sketching the same wall where the first leaf had been. "Maya," she said softly, "if my time comes soon, promise me something." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Don't say that." Lena smiled faintly. "Promise me you'll keep painting, even if you run out of color, even if the world forgets my name. Keep painting hope." Maya nodded, sobbing quietly. "I promise." Lena looked outside. The ivy had shed its leaves again for winter. Only one leaf, a real one, clung stubbornly to the vine. She smiled. "It's still there, just like him." That night, she fell asleep holding Mr. Bennett's brush. The next morning was silent. The rain tapped softly on the window. Maya entered Lena's room. Her friend was lying peacefully, a faint smile on her face, her hand resting on the sketchbook. On the last page, she had painted something new. A woman walking in the rain, carrying a single green leaf in her hand. Below it, she had written, "I'm going where the leaves never fall." Maya broke down, clutching the sketchbook to her chest. But then she looked outside. The last leaf was still there, trembling but unfallen, and for some reason, she smiled. Months later, Maya fulfilled her promise. She continued the studio, teaching children and patients how to paint hope through colors. Every student who completed their first artwork painted a small green leaf in the corner, the mark of the last promise. A year after Lena's passing, Maya held an exhibition in her honor titled "The Leaf That Never Fell." Hundreds came, artists, patients, families, and strangers. Among them was the same little girl from New York. She placed a yellow paper leaf on Lena's painting and whispered, "Thank you." Maya looked at the crowd and said, "Hope isn't something you wait for. It's something you create." one leaf at a time. Years later, the ivy wall behind their old apartment became famous. People from all over the world visited it, each painting one green leaf of their own. The gray wall turned into a living mural, a sea of green spreading across the bricks. Some leaves had names written on them. For my mother, for my lost dream, for my second chance. And at the very center, untouched by time or weather, was the first leaf, still bright, still shining. No one knew who painted it, but those who stood before it felt something warm, as if the wall itself was whispering, "Keep believing." The next morning, a cold mist rolled over the narrow streets of London. The kind of mist that seemed to swallow all sound and color, leaving behind only silence and breath. In a small flat tucked away behind the old brick walls, Johnsy lay still, her body weak, her eyes open but empty. The last leaf on the ivy vine had clung to the branch all night. Not a single gust had taken it away. Sue entered quietly with a bowl of soup in her trembling hands. She had been up all night praying, watching the wall outside the window, whispering to the leaf, "Please don't fall." As she reached Johnsy's bedside, she heard a faint whisper, "Sue, the leaf, it's still there." Sue smiled softly. "Yes, darling, it's still there. It held on, just like you did." Johnsy's eyes filled with tears, the first tears of hope in days. Maybe it was meant to tell me something," she murmured. "That life doesn't give up so easily. That even when everything looks dead, something still clings to." Sue nodded, unable to speak. She only held her friend's hand, feeling the warmth returning to it. The morning light began to pour in through the thin curtains, casting a golden glow across the room. Later that day, the doctor visited again. His face, usually heavy and serious, softened as he checked Johnsy's pulse. "She'll recover," he said with a smile. "She's past the worst. A miracle, I'd say." Sue almost wept in relief. A miracle. Or maybe just a leaf. But as the doctor turned to leave, he hesitated. "Did you hear about old Behrman?" Sue frowned. "Behrman? The painter?" The doctor sighed. "He passed away early this morning. Pneumonia. They found him in his room downstairs, his clothes soaked and stiff with cold. He must have been out in that freezing rain last night." Sue froze. "In the rain?" she whispered. "But why would he?" And then it struck her. The leaf, the one that had not fallen, the one that had given Johnsy hope. Her heart pounded as she rushed to the window. She stared at the ivy vine, her breath fogging up the glass. It wasn't a real leaf, not anymore. It was Behrman's painting, his masterpiece. Every stroke, perfect, defiant, alive. Even now, after the storm, it clung to the wall with such fierce beauty that it fooled the world and saved a life. Sue pressed her hand to her mouth as tears streamed down her cheeks. She turned to Johnsy, who was now sleeping peacefully, unaware of the sacrifice that had kept her alive. "Oh, Behrman," Sue whispered, "you painted your dream and it became her hope." Days passed. The world outside grew brighter. The ivy vine remained green, its single painted leaf unmoving, a quiet witness to courage and love. Johnsy recovered fully, her laughter slowly filling the small flat once again. She often stood by the window, gazing at that leaf, never knowing that it wasn't real, but perhaps feeling in some mysterious way the heart that had created it. Sue never told her the truth. She only said softly one morning, "The last leaf doesn't fall. Johnsy, not when it's painted with love." Years later, Johnsy became an artist herself. Her paintings were filled with the same hope that had once saved her. Leaves that never fell. Skies that always broke into light after storms. In every piece of art, she left a small signature in the corner. A single green leaf, standing strong against the wind. People asked her once what it meant. She smiled and said, "It's a reminder that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change the end of someone's story." The last leaf stayed on that wall until the building was torn down decades later. But in every brushstroke, in every heart it touched, it lived on. A symbol of silent sacrifice, of the unseen heroes who give hope when hope is gone. Moral of my story: even the weakest hands can create the strongest hope. And sometimes one leaf, painted in love, can save a soul. If you like my story, then support me with subscribe my channel and like and share the video with your good friends, and comments me what type of story you like. I will make the video. Thanks for watching.